Good day, everyone. I hope you are all well today. Before we get started, please just let me know if you can see the screen and if you can also hear my voice. Just put a thumbs up. Okay, perfect. Everyone can see and everyone can hear my voice as well. Okay. So we ended off by division of fractions, right? That was our last lesson. So today we will finish the chapter and we will continue, with our addition and subtraction of fractions, right? Okay, let me just accept a few more people, then I'll just stop accepting after this, and then we can get started. Okay, so addition and subtraction of fractions, right? This is basically the harder part of your fractions, but we have shortcuts, right? We have shortcuts with doing these kind of chapters, right? Or this specific topic. So a lot of people usually have a problem with this, but I'm here to assure you after today's lesson, you guys are going to be okay with this part, right? Okay, so let's go. Let's start off with addition, right? So addition of subtraction, of fractions. We basically have two fractions that we just need to add together, right? Hence the name addition of fractions. So let's start off with an example that says p squared minus 5, right? Or actually, let me just first give you how we would do the thing, right? Before I head over to the examples. So in order for us to do addition of fractions, let's say we have a divided by c, right? Plus another fraction that says b divided by c. What do we do in this case? This is pretty simple. We first need to look at the denominator. If the denominator is the same, right, then we have a common denominator. In this case, we have what we call a common denominator of c. So this means that we can just add the numerators. So a plus b divided by c. So I'm sure you guys are fine with this. This is the exact same thing as when we have a negative in between, right? So let's say a divided by c minus b divided by c, right? We are subtracting two fractions together. So we first look at the denominator. We can see that we have a common denominator, right? And when we have a common denominator, we just add or subtract the numerator. So we would get a minus b divided by c. Is everyone okay with this? Put a thumbs up. Okay, perfect. You should be okay with this, right? Because it's quite simple. So I'm going to do a couple of examples of when we have a common denominator, right? And then as time goes on, or as we finish this first part, I'll show you where the denominators are different and what to do in that case, right? Okay. So let's start off with an example. And I'm going to say p to the power of 3. Or let's say p to the power of 2 minus 5 divided by p minus 3 plus 4p plus 3 divided by p minus 3 as well. Okay, so what do we do in this case? We first identify that we have an addition of fractions, all right? And the moment you identify that, you immediately look at your denominator. So at the denominator, we have a p minus 3. And in the other denominator as well, we have a p minus 3, right? So what happens? You just write one long line over there, and then in the denominator, you write your p minus 3, right? Then we look over at the top. We have p squared minus 5. You write it down as it is. Plus our other numerator, which is 4p plus 3. I would advise you to write it, to write it in brackets, but since it's positives, and your positive doesn't change anything, you can just omit the brackets, right? But with your negatives, with your subtraction of fractions, it's always best to write you know, your brackets, right? So that you don't make mistakes. So now what happens is we can just simplify the numerator according to its like terms, right? So we have p squared, which has no other like terms. And we have the positive 4p, which also has no other like terms. And then we have our negative 5 plus 3. So negative 5 plus 3 will give us a negative 2. And this is all divided by p minus 3. Okay. So I'm assuming that you guys are okay with this. You know, it's literally the exact same thing we did from that explanation that I showed over there, right? Okay. Now, okay, maybe let's do another one, right? So let's do another one. So let's say I have x squared minus 5x plus 4. And this is divided by x squared plus 2x minus 3. And then this is minus by x squared plus 2x divided by x squared plus 5x plus 6. Okay, so what do we do in this case? What do we do in this case? So first things first, I would like you guys to identify is do not head to the conclusion that the denominators are not the same, right? Don't just jump into that conclusion. What I want you guys to identify is we have trinomials in the numerator, and we also have trinomials in the denominator. What can we do to that, to the numerator and the denominator of each fraction? What should be going on in your mind is you should be thinking of simplifying, right? You should be thinking of, sorry, factorizing. Slungile, you may answer. I see you raise up your hand.
Oh, hi, sir.
Hi.
I just wanted to say what you just said. Victorize.
Okay, no problem, no problem. So yes, that's the correct answer. All you have to do is you can open two brackets, right? Before you head to the conclusion that these are different denominators. So what happens over there, I'm going to open two brackets in the numerator and also in the denominator, right? So for the numerator, what am I going to do? I'll distribute the x's. And then I need to distribute, sorry, I need to find the multiples of 4 that will give me a negative 5, right? When I add or subtract them together. So I have a 1 and a 4, I have a 2 and a 2. So likewise, there's no ways I can add a 2 and a 2 and I get a negative 5, right? But I can do something with the 1 and the 4. I can say negative and negative 4. That's going to give me a negative 5 over there. Do you guys agree with me on that? Just put a thumbs up. Okay, perfect. Okay, the others let's now do the second part, right? So with the second part, or the denominator part, I distributed my x as well. And then now I need multiples of 3 that will give me a positive 2, right? So I only have a 1 and a 3. So I can say positive 3 minus 1 in order for me to get a positive 2, right? Then I'm done with that part. Then now let's move over to the next fraction. So for the numerator in the next fraction, I can take out a common factor. And the common factor I can take out is an x. And then I will be left with a x plus 2 in the brackets over there, right? And this will be divided by, let's open two brackets as well. So I'll distribute my x, and then I need multiples of 6 that will give me a positive 5. So we have 1 and 6 that we can use, and we also have a 2 and a 3, right? So we just need to find which one we need to use specifically. So in this case, I can say a positive 2 and a positive 3, right? And the reason why I couldn't use a 1 and a 6 is, remember, I need to use two positives. So in this case, if I said a 1 and a 6, I said maybe a -1 and a +6, right? That would give me a +5. But when I multiply these two together, it would not give me this +6. Are you guys with me on that? Just put a thumbs up if you are with me. Okay, seems like everyone. Okay, so this is what I like to see. Everyone is okay with that part. Some people, usually people get confused with what I just said over there, right? Okay, but that's perfect. So that's why I use the +2 and the +3 over there. So what happens now is I can cancel out some stuff. I'm going to cancel out in the first fraction, I'll cancel out our x minus 1. And then in our second fraction, I can cancel out my x plus 2. So once I've done that, this is what I have remaining, right? I now have a x minus 4 divided by x plus 3. And then in the next fraction, let's put our negative symbol. I have x divided by x plus 3. And would you look at that? We have the same denominator. So once we know that we have the same common denominator, we have a common denominator, we can just put this under one fraction. In our denominator, we would have the x plus 3, which is the common denominator. And then in the numerator, we would have our x minus 4 minus our x over there. So we can simplify this and find our final answer. So this x will cancel with the negative x, right? And then our final answer would be -4 over x plus 3. So a question like this would probably be 2 to 3 marks. Or yeah, 2 to 3 marks in your test, right? So please do make sure that you do know them. Okay, so it seems like you guys are all okay with this one. Would you guys like us to do one more of these types, or would you like to move on to the ones where we have different denominators? Okay, Renela, you may answer.
Can we do one more,
Okay,
please?
one more. So I'm just
Yes.
gonna enable everyone in the chat to also vote. So would you guys like us to continue to the next part, or would you like us to do one more? Just type in the chat over there. Okay. So one more won't hurt, right? If you do one more, it will not hurt. And I see people are also saying let's do one more. That will not hurt us. That will just solidify our understanding. So let's do one more. Okay. Let me choose a nice example that we can. Okay, let me just do this example. So we have x squared plus x minus 5, and this is divided by x minus 7 minus x squared minus 2 divided by x minus 7 plus -4 x plus 8, and this is divided by x squared minus 9x plus 14. So remember what I told you guys, right? Don't jump into a conclusion that says, we do not have the same denominators, right? Don't jump into those conclusions. What I would like you guys to first do, right? And this is always the case, even if we have different denominators, even if we actually have different denominators, I would like you guys to always try to simplify whatever expression that you can see that is that you can simplify. So in this case, I see that this numerator of the first fraction, I can simplify it by opening two brackets, right? I can definitely simplify it. I can say x, x, and then multiples of 5. That will give me a +1. Okay, so that one we can't simplify it right immediately because there's nothing that we can use of 1 and a 5 that will give us a +1, right? So let's just leave it as it is. Are you guys with me on that one? So I try to simplify that one, and then I see that I can't do anything to it. Okay, perfect. So we have x minus 7 in the denominator. And then let's look at the next one. So the next part, I don't think I can do anything to this one as well. I can't do the difference of two squares as well. So I think it would just be best to leave it alone. It's not going to help us with anything. So x squared minus 2 divided by x minus 7 as well, right? So I think it's best to leave that alone. But this part is the problem. And that would most likely be the part where we have to do something, right? So I can see with the negative 4x plus 8, I can take out a common factor of negative. Okay, let's just take out a common factor of 4. All right, so let's take out a common factor of 4 for now. I'll be left with actually no, negative 4. I will be left with the x minus 2, right? And I'm just taking it out for now, right? Keyword for now. Because, for example, we could have something, we could have brackets, right? When we do two brackets over here, we could have a bracket that says x plus 2, right? And when you have a bracket that says x plus 2, we might have to, add, multiply that negative inside or something like that, right? I hope you get where I'm going. But let's just do it. Let's take out a negative 4. And then that's what we will have in the numerator. Then I'll open two brackets over here. And then I have my x distributed. Then my 14. So multiples of 14, I have 1 and 14, 2 and 7. And then 3 and, okay, no, 3 will not work. And I think that's it, right? So I can use a positive 7 and a positive 2 in that case. So no, sorry, not a positive 7 and a positive 2. I can use a negative 7 and a negative 2. In order for me to have a negative 9 when I add the 2 together, and a positive 14 when I multiply the 2 together. All right. So in this case, you see that these cancel out. And then that's what we have remaining. We now have x squared plus x minus 5. And this is divided by x minus 7 minus x squared minus 2 divided by x minus 7 plus, let's just put our negative 4 over there in the numerator. I'll be with you now, Nolitando. Divided by x minus 7, right? So we can now see that we have common denominators, and then in the numerator, we'll just have to add and subtract whatever expression we have over there, right? So Nolitando, I see you raised up your hand. You may ask a question.
Hi,
Hello. You may ask a question.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I was wondering, when do you start using the LCD, like the lowest common factor? Like, where does it apply?
So the lowest common denominator, right? So the lowest common factor, the lowest common denominator, sorry. We use it when we have two different denominators, right? So that's why I first initially told you guys that we will do one where the denominators are the same. As you can see, the denominators have always been the same over here. And then we'll do an example where we have to use the lowest common denominator, where the denominators are different, basically.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, pleasure. And anyone else with a question, or we are okay? You can just put a thumbs up if you're okay, and we can move on. Okay, so I'm just gonna finish this example, and then we can go over to the next, what do you call it? We can go over to the next part, right? So we have the same denominator. So we have a common denominator of x minus 7. So we just write it underneath over there. So x squared plus x minus 5 minus x squared minus 2, do not forget the brackets, plus your negative 4, right? Let's simplify everything. When I multiply this negative inside, I'll have a negative x squared and a positive 2, right? So the negative x squared will cancel out with the x squared over there. So I'll have the x remaining, and then the negative 5 plus 2 will give me a negative 3. And then we also have that negative 4 as well. So let's just write it down. Then x minus 7. And then simplifying this further, I have x negative 3 minus 4 will give us negative 7. This is divided by x minus 7, right? So these can cancel out because they are the exact same thing. And then our final answer in this case would be a positive 1. And that's the simplified answer to this whole expression. Okay, perfect. So let's go over to the next part, guys. Let's now go over to the part where we have different denominators, and we need to use the lowest common denominator, right? Okay, so here's the example I'm going to start with, right? And this one, I'm just going to show it to you guys by what do you call it? By an example immediately, right? I can't necessarily show you with, actually I could, let me just do it. So let's call it LCD method of adding or subtracting fractions. So this is what we'll just call it so that we can remember it, right? Okay. So let's say we have, this is just the, let's write down method that we always need to use, right? So the method basically, let's say we have A divided by B minus C divided by D, right? Remember, this works both ways for positive, for adding and subtraction. So let me just first use an addition, right? So in this case, you can definitely see we have two different denominators, right? We have two different denominators. So what do? We need to find what we call the lowest common denominator, right? And the lowest common denominator is always us just multiplying this denominator with this denominator, right? So I'm going to repeat that again. Our lowest common denominator is basically us just multiplying this denominator with this denominator. So when we multiply them together, we basically have BD as our common denominator. And then what happens over there, I will show you a quick method that we can use to make things simpler, right? Once we have a common denominator, the lowest common denominator, I want you to take the denominator from this side, and I want you to multiply it with that A over there. Then I also want you to take the common denominator of this one, and I want you to multiply it with that C over there. Right? And then that's going to give us AD plus CB divided by BD. Are you guys with me on that? It's always going to be the case, guys. That's how simple it is. So if you can follow this method every single time, you will always get the question correct. Okay. So remember, let's say we now have, I'm just going to make a quick example with the exact same thing. Let's say we have the A divided by B plus C divided by, let's say, BD. What would be our lowest common denominator in this case? As you can see, we have B on both sides. And this side, the only difference is there is another D. Our lowest common denominator in this case would still be B and D. Are you guys with me? Because we are basically just taking the two different things, right? If there is the exact same expression, right? Maybe like this B and this another and this B again, you just take one B and then you also take the other d, right? So don't take two of them. Don't say b squared d. Please don't do that, right? Okay. So let's do an example now. So this also applies for your subtraction as well. So I'm just going to do this just to show that it also applies for subtraction. Okay. Let's do an example. We have t divided by 3t plus 2 minus 4 divided by t minus 1. So immediately you can identify that these are two different denominators, right? And you have to do a subtraction of fractions. The first thing that needs to come to your mind when you see two different two different denominators, right? And you can't even simplify, you can't even do anything in order to try to make it the exact same, right? So the moment you see that, you do the lowest common denominator, you find the lowest common denominator. In this case, it's going to be 3t plus 2 multiplied by the t minus 1. And then, like I told you before, just take this t minus 1 multiplied with t, and take the 3t plus 2 and multiply it with that 4 over there. All right? So let's do that. Therefore, we have t multiplied by t minus 1, right? Minus, remember we had a negative symbol in between, minus 4 multiplied by 3t plus 2. And then this is divided by your lowest common denominator, which we just found over there, which is 3t plus 2t minus 1. So are you guys okay with this? All you have to do from this point onwards, you just have to simplify. It's easy, right? Pretty simple. Okay, perfect. It's pretty simple, guys. Pretty basic, straightforward, right? So let's just simplify this and find our final answer. So I'll have t squared minus t minus 12t minus 8. All right. This is divided by 3t plus 2 t minus 1. And I would like for you guys not to multiply these two brackets together. Just leave it as it is, right? Don't multiply them together and try to make them, simpler. Just leave it as it is and you'll be fine, right? So your t squared and then minus t plus 12 minus 12t is going to be negative 13t minus 8. This would be divided by your 3t plus 2 multiplied by t minus 1. That's your final answer. You just leave it as it is. So can you guys hit me with some thumbs up if you guys are okay with this? Okay, perfect. So I'm glad that you guys are fine with that as well. So let's do one more. I'm gonna gradually go, do tougher and tougher questions, right? So I'm just starting off with the easier ones, and then we'll do the harder and harder ones as we go on, right? Okay. Let's do one more easy one. Just one more. Okay, so for this example, we have 4 divided by q minus 1 plus a positive 3, right? And then they want us to add these fractions together. So are you guys able to identify that we have two different denominators in this case? Just put a thumbs up if you can identify it, and just put a thumbs down if you do not know what I'm talking about, right? Okay, lovely. Okay, so in this case, I hope you guys all know that 3 divided by 1 is still the exact same thing as 3. So basically, in this case, these are our two denominators, the q minus 1 and the 1. So our lowest common denominator in this case would be your 1 multiplied by q minus 1. So the lowest common denominator would just be the q minus 1. So what happens now? I take this 1, I multiply it with that 4. I take the q minus 1, I multiply it with 3 over there. And then what do I get? I get 4 multiplied by 1. So I'll just, okay, let me just write it down. Plus 3 multiplied by q minus 1. This whole thing is divided by our lowest common denominator of q minus 1. So we can just simplify this real quick. We have 4 plus 3q minus 3. And this is divided by q minus 1. This would now be equals to 1 plus 3q divided by q minus 1. And there's nothing you can cancel out. You just leave the answer as it is. Are you guys fine with this one? Okay, lovely, perfect. Now I want us to do, I'm gonna do a difficult one now, right? Or one that's considered difficult. But the good thing about doing difficult ones is once you understand them, you will never ever get this chapter wrong, right? Or anything in this chapter wrong. That's when you have truly understood a chapter. If you can get the hard questions correctly, you don't even need to practice the most simple ones. Okay, so here's our I can call it challenging type of what do you call it? Addition and subtraction of fractions. But it's not really that difficult. You'll see in a few. Okay. So what is the first thing that I would like you guys to do? Is a trinomial that I see over here, and I do not like where it is. Like, I do not like seeing it. So what is the first thing that we can do? Do you guys agree that we can simplify it? We can simplify it, right? So once we can simplify it, and then that's when we can find our common, our lowest common denominator. And the problem with not simplifying this part, right? Let me just tell you why you should simplify it. The problem with not simplifying this part is that you could have two brackets that have your x squared minus 9. And then if you just write this whole thing as part of your lowest common denominator, you have included two x squared minus 9s, right? So that's why we always try to simplify it, just to make sure that we do not repeat any similar, any similar expressions, right? Are you guys with me on that? So when you're in your test, and then you see something like this, right? And then you are unsure whether you need to simplify it or not, factorize it or not, just remember that Mr. Boost told you that you need to simplify it because it's possible that there could be an expression that looks the exact same on two sides, and you would be including both of them, right? Okay, so now let's move on. Our x minus 2, we cannot do anything to it, right? And then this is divided by, let's open two brackets. I'll distribute my x over there, and I'll distribute my other x over there as well. And then I have a positive 9. So with my positive 9, I need to find multiples of positive 9. That will give me a positive 6 when I add them together. So I can use a positive 3 and a positive 3, right? So you immediately can see that there's a problem here, right? There's a problem. We would have made a mistake somewhere, somehow, if we do not simplify this, right? So minus x plus 2 divided by 2. And then what can we do over here? Can someone type it in the chat? How do we simplify that one? What do we call this? What do we call this expression
The
over here?
difference of squares.
Difference of two squares. Perfect, perfect. So this is a difference of two squares. So you can definitely factorize it, right? So I'll open two brackets. I have x and another x. Then with a difference of two squares, I put a positive and a negative over there. And then your root of 9 is basically 3 and a 3, right? So now I would like us to what do you call it? To now write down our lowest common denominator. So in this case, right, our lowest common denominator would be this 2, right? It's this 2.
So we can't hear you.
You guys can't hear me? Okay, let me just maybe try. Let me try switching off the mic and switching it back on. Okay, can you guys hear me now? Okay, perfect. So as I was saying, right, in order for us to get the lowest common denominator in this case, right, let's look at the things that we are 100% sure are part of the lowest common denominator. That 2 is definitely part of the lowest common denominator. This x minus 3 is definitely part of the lowest common denominator as well, right? So I'm just going to write it down. And then this was the parts where maybe people could get confused, right? What would we write for our x plus 3 in terms of our lowest common denominator? Does anyone have an idea what we could write? Do we write 1x plus 3? Do we write 2x? Sorry, do we write x plus 3 squared? Do we write x plus 3 to the power of 3? What do you guys think? Okay, Slungila, I see you raised up your hand. You may answer the question.
I'm not sure, but I think we just write x plus 1. Only one x plus 1.
Only 1x plus 3.
Yes, plus 3. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Okay. Any takers? Any takers? Let me switch on the messages and then let's see if anyone else wants to take a guess. So you guys can type what you guys think. Patience, I see you raised up your hand as well. Let's give it a go. Okay, Tato says 2x plus 3s. Okay. And then Jennifer, I see you also raised up your hand. Okay, so in this case, right, you would have to use 2, right? You would have to say x plus 3 squared. And what is the reasoning behind that, right? Let's take this x plus 3, right? And then we will match it with 1x plus 3 on the other side. Remember what I said, right? They should be, if they are the exact same on 2 different sides, right? We only take one of them. So this x plus 3 matches with 1x plus 3, right? I'm going to match it with this 1x plus 3, right? And then what happens to this x plus 3 over here? We have to write it down as well. So the ones in red, these x plus 3s that are highlighted in red, we count them as 1, right? So I'm going to write them down as 1 over here. And then this x plus 3 that's remaining as well, the x plus 3 that's remaining as well, I'm going to place it in as well, which is going to be your squared. Are you guys with me on that? Okay, perfect. So please be careful of those type of lowest common denominators, right? Because the moment you get the lowest common denominator wrong is the moment your whole question is incorrect, right? So just please remember what I said. We just need to look, as you can see, we have 1x plus 3 on this side and another x plus 3 on this side, and then we mash them together by highlighting them, right? And then we have 1x plus 3 that's remaining. So that one we can, it's on the both, it's on the 2 sides, right? So we can just say x plus 3 squared, right? It's on the same side. So that one we do not have to count it. We can count it as a separate, let's call it separate, as a separate entity, basically. Okay, perfect. So you guys understand this? It means we can now move on and finish this part, right? And then I'll just do one more. And this one is, yeah, I think people struggle with it a lot, right? So after I've done that, remember, I will take this whole denominator, then I'll multiply it to the numerator of your x minus 2. And I'll also take this whole denominator, I'll multiply it to the numerator of the x plus 2 over there. So let's write it down. I have x minus 2 multiplied by 2 x plus 3 x minus 3. And then I see Sveziwe has raised up their hand.
Yes, sir. I'm so confused. What is going on with the LCD?
The
I'm
LCD.
so lost. Yes.
So basically, okay, let me repeat the LCD, guys. Let me repeat it one more time, right? So I want to make sure that everyone understands this. Okay. Okay, so just please mute your mic, Sveziwe.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So as I was saying, right, with the LCD, let's look at what we can place in, what we are 100% sure that we can place in, right? So this 2 is definitely going in the LCD, right? So we write it down. This x minus 3 is definitely going into the LCD as well, right? So let's write it down. X minus 3. And then we have 3x plus 3 is always over here. We have 3x plus 3. So remember, I told you guys, if we have, let's say, a divided by b plus c divided by bd, right? If on different fractions, right, on this first fraction, we have a b, and on the second fraction, we have another b. These fractions, we consider them as one thing, and we write them down as 1b, right? So our lowest common denominator in this case would be a b and d, not b squared and d. It'll just be b and d, right? Just put a thumbs up if you guys understand. Okay, perfect. Now I'm gonna do the exact same thing with this. My bad. I'll do the exact same thing with the x plus 3 that we have over there, right? So the x plus 3 that we have over there, I have my x plus 3 on the right-hand side, on the right-hand denominator. So let me highlight it. So I can only select one other x plus 3 in order to match it. So I'm selecting this x plus 3 in order to match it as well, right? So these two x plus 3 that I highlighted, we'll count them as just one x plus 3, right? That's why I'm gonna write down one x plus 3 over here. And then what do we do to this x plus 3 that's remaining? We also need to write it down because already we have considered these two as one entity. So now this x plus 3, I'm just gonna write it down as well. So I'll say x plus 3, and then that's it. So that's why I said squared over there, because now we have two x plus 3s that we could use. Are you guys okay with this? Okay, perfect. So just please be careful of these types. Okay, so remember, once we find the lowest common denominator, we just need to multiply this part of the denominator to the numerator of that part, right? And then we multiply this denominator as well to that part as well, all right? And then we basically have x minus 2. This is multiplied by 2 multiplied by x plus 3, x minus 3, right? Then we put this negative symbol in front. Then we have our x plus 2 multiplied by our x plus 3, x plus 3 as well. Okay, perfect. So in the denominator, we see that we have our lowest common denominator. That is 2 multiplied by x minus 3 multiplied by x plus 3 to the power of 2. All right, so are you guys okay with this? Okay. Lutando, I see you raised up your hand as well.
Okay, has now that you are multiplying everything with the top part, why isn't there a squared?
Why is the wait? Just please repeat what you asked.
I need the LCD. It's 2 open bracket x minus 3 close bracket open bracket x plus 3 to the power 2, right?
Yes.
So now as you're multiplying it on the what's this numerator with the x minus 2, why isn't there a squared on that one?
So you mean this one? Why isn't there a squared?
No, it's the second
On,
step that you're doing right now.
okay, down here.
On the x minus 2 times open bracket 2 again with the LCD. Yes, that part.
Okay, so remember, we are not multiplying with the lowest common denominator. We are multiplying with this part. So
Oh,
this
okay.
part over there, and likewise this part over there. So the lowest common denominator, you do not multiply. You do not multiply with it. It's just what you need to write down in the denominator as your final answer.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
My pleasure. So let's simplify this, right? Okay, Nobuhle, I see you also raise up your hand.
With the x plus 2, why are we multiplying with 2 into x plus 3 again if we already have x plus 3 squared in the denominator?
Okay, so please remember, guys, when we find the lowest common denominator, as how we have been doing previously, right? Just look at this example, right? When we find the lowest common denominator, as we found it over here, it was q minus 1, right? We do not do anything with the lowest common denominator. But these denominators that were left behind, right, that we got the lowest common denominator from, these were the denominators that we cross multiplied, right? So I'm also just doing the exact same thing over here. I'm doing the exact same thing. I found my lowest common denominator, right? I found my lowest common denominator, as you can see, and then I just wrote it down, and then I left it as it is. And then now I'm just cross multiplying the denominators of each fraction. I'm just cross multiplying them into that side and that side. So that's why I have our x plus 3, x times x plus 3 over there, because it multiplied with this one, right? And then I have my 2x plus 3 multiplied by x minus 3. That multiplied on this side. Are you guys okay with that one? Are you okay with that one, Nobush? So just follow everything that we have done before, right? This is nothing different. This is just an expression with more terms, right? But everything else is still the same. This is still the same concept. You find the lowest common denominator, you cross multiply, and you just place your lowest common denominator in the denominator part, right? But we'll do more of these if you guys are still feeling confused, right? So I'm just gonna move on and do one more. All right. So this one says we need to simplify 1 over x plus h minus 1 over x divided by h, where our h cannot be equals to 0. All right. So this is the last example for today. So this one, they like to ask it a lot, right? You find that it's usually of like 4 marks, right? Usually 4 marks or so. Okay, Slungile, I see you raised up your hand.
Oh, sorry, sir. I just wanted to ask if the final problem
So,
you were doing, is that the final answer?
no, it's not the final answer. You can just simplify the numerator and then you're done, right? So that's all you need to do. You just simplify the numerator, multiply the brackets inside and everything, and then yeah, and that's it. But once you
Oh,
reach this point, all you have to do is just simplify, right?
okay. So to a problem where you have maybe 2, 4, 8 on your denominator,
Okay.
what you do?
So if we
You
have
call
2, 4, 8, just please repeat.
them multiples of 2. You have 2, 4, 8.
I'm not too sure at what you're referring to. Just please, okay, maybe give me an example of the question that you are asking.
Okay, maybe I have x plus I don't know, 9 over 2 plus x squared plus 6 over 4 plus 5 plus x
Okay,
over
so
8.
plus 5 plus x over 8. So these types
Yeah,
are the ones where you'd have to find the lowest common multiple, right? So the ones with the numbers are the ones you have to find the lowest common multiple. And I'm sure you guys can see it immediately over there is it should be 16. You can use 16 as the lowest common multiple, right? Or the
also
lowest common
you might
multiple is 8
also
itself. Sorry.
you
Just please,
you
sorry.
add denominators.
You add the what? I can't really hear you.
Do you add the denominators? You say 2 plus 4 plus 8.
No. So with that one, I'll do that example as well, right? So let me just quickly finish this one, and then I'll also do that example as well, right? So you don't just add the denominators. I'll show you guys what we do. So let me just erase this. So these last two questions that we're about to do, right? I said this one would be 4 marks. This one would be 3 to 4 marks as well, right? The one that we did previously. Okay, so let's quickly finish this one, and then we'll do that one that I think it's Lungile was asking, right? So we have 1 over x plus h minus 1 over x divided by h, right? So in this case, I'll say 1 over x plus h minus 1 over x, and then this is divided by our h. I hope you guys agree with this. So what I can do, I can change this to a multiplication. And once I change this to a multiplication, what happens? This was h over 1, right? So this now will become 1 over h, right? So I'm sure you guys are fine with that part so far. Okay, let's now do that middle part over there. So this is basically all types of fractions combined, right? Combined operations with fractions, all types of fractions combined into one thing. So as you can see, we did the division of the division of fractions over there, as you can with the switching of the symbol and switching of the places, right? And then over here we are doing the subtraction of fractions as well. So over here, I will need to find the lowest common denominator for these two specifically inside the brackets. And I'm sure you guys can agree with me that the lowest common denominator would be x multiplied by x plus h. Do you guys agree with me on that? Remember, it's in brackets. It's in those specific brackets, and it's the only one with this negative. Let's leave this outside part because it's multiplying, right? Since it's multiplying, we do not need to find the lowest common denominator. And it's just on the other side, right? It's basically aside from this part that we are doing currently. Okay, I see Renelo, you asked your answers. Sorry, you asked your question as well. You raised up your hand. You want to ask a
Yes,
question?
sir. So
Okay.
why don't we say our lowest common denominator is x plus h?
X plus h.
Yeah.
Okay. So in this case, right, we would only say it's x plus h if, remember these are two different terms, right? This positive changes everything. If maybe we had x multiplied by, okay, let me just tell you immediately, right? These are two different terms. These are two different denominators, right? This x plus h, we can't just say this x is the exact same as this x over there. This is two different x's because this one is x plus h, not just x alone. Do you understand what I mean?
So, sir, if it said xh, that means the lowest common denominator is going to be xh.
So yes, perfect. So if it was
Oh,
xh,
okay.
x, then this would be xh as the lowest common denominator. Perfect. So the moment there's a positive, just know that this and this side, there's a addition. Just know that this whole expression is one thing, basically. So you have to treat it as one thing. So let's continue. Our lowest common denominator would be x multiplied by x plus h. So let's write down our lowest common denominator. X multiplied by x plus h. Then what do I do after that? I just take these denominators, I cross multiply them, right? So I'll cross multiply it with that one. I'll also cross multiply it, this x with that one as well. So I have x minus x plus h. Hope you guys agree with me on that one. And then remember, we still have the 1 over h as well. Okay. So let's quickly finish up. We have x minus x, which will cancel out. And then in the numerator, we'll just have a negative h divided by x multiplied by x plus h. This is going to be multiplied by 1 over h. Then I hope you guys agree that we can cancel these h's out. All right, so we can cancel them. We can cancel those two h's out. Are you guys okay with that? Just put a thumbs up. Okay, perfect. So when we cancel those out, we basically have a negative 1 in the numerator divided by x multiplied by x plus h. So are you guys okay with this? We'll do a lot of these examples, guys, so that you guys, we'll do a lot of these questions so that you guys are, 100% with it. Okay. So let's go back to that other question that I think it was a Slungile that asked what do we do if we just have numbers in the denominator? So I think it was a 2. Just please repeat that question to me if you can. 4 and an 8 somewhere here.
No, sir, I was just creating the question. Is not the exact one.
Oh, okay. So okay, let me just quickly do a question, and then I'll show you guys how we do it. Let me say x squared minus. Okay, let's say x squared minus 3, right? And then over here I'll say x plus 2, something like that, right? Still valid. Okay, so with these ones, right, we find what we call our lowest common multiple, right? Our lowest common multiple. So our lowest common multiple in this case would be a 4. Do you guys understand how we got to that? So we can multiply these two with another 2 to get to that 4. And basically I can just multiply, this 4 is basically the highest common value to this 2. Do you guys see what I mean? Oh, it's up to you. You can just do the exact same LCD thing, the lowest common denominator thing. You can do that. That's 100% fine. You can say 4 times 2, and you find that your LCD will be 8, right? And then you just write it down as 8 over there. You say 8, right? And then what do? We just crisscross again. We crisscross these, then we are done. It's up to you guys. You can do any method that I just shown you now. That's 100% up to you. You'll get 100%. So then you just simplify that and then you'll be done. So are you guys fine with this? So actually, yes, I would prefer you guys to just do the lowest common denominator thing as well. Just multiply the 2 and find the lowest common denominator and do the exact same steps, right? So that we don't have to learn a lot of steps, that could potentially confuse us. Let's stick to one specific method, right? One specific method that does it all, right? Okay, perfect. So we are basically done with chapter 0,6. And in the next chapter, we would be doing equations. And your linear equations and your quadratic equations for 0,8 as well. I think we can definitely finish that in one lesson. All right. We can finish our equations in one lesson. So yeah, I'm not gonna give you guys homework for today. I'll give you guys homework for after the next lesson when we have done all the chapters, when we're finished with chapter 0. And then from then onwards, I think we can jump over to chapter 2. I don't think you guys are gonna do chapter 1, right? Am I correct or incorrect with that statement? Just type. Okay, let me just enable the chat. Okay, chapter 1. Do you guys do chapter 1? We can do it, but I don't think you guys do chapter 1. I've never seen it being tested. Oh, it's incorrect. Okay, you guys are doing it. Okay, we will just cover it. I think we'll just cover a couple of those chapters, and then we'll head over to chapter 2 as well. Chapter 1 should be really quick because you don't do the whole chapter. Usually you just do, maybe a few chapters of it, sub-chapters of it, and then you'll be fine, right? And they don't usually really test, they never test it, right? But this chapter and chapter 2 and chapter 3 and so forth, those are the ones that they test the most, right? Okay, so I think that's everything for today. Thank you guys for attending, and have a great night.